Hi, everyone. Welcome to the living room once again. And today I am very, very pleased to have Cherise with me. And I find Cherise had such an interesting story because when I first saw her biography, I saw that it was so similar to my own story, and I could relate to whatever that she's gone through. And I felt that, a woman who has come out from that kind of experience coming out stronger from that experience is I think they are so brave. It takes a lot of courage to come out and to be able to be open about it and share with people about what they've gone through. So I'm so pleased to have Cherise with me on this show. Hi, Cherise. How are you?
Hi, thank you so much for having me. Thank you. I'm really glad to be here. How are you?
I'm great as well. Share with the viewers, right, a little bit about yourself, where you're from.
Yeah, okay, of course. Again, I'm Cherise Laron, and I live in New Orleans, Louisiana, here in the United States. And I, I had a pretty decent life growing up. Went to college, great childhood, all that kind of stuff. And what wound up happening was I got married, checking off the boxes, basically. Go to college, get your degree, get married, have a family. And I thought I was doing what was essentially that fairy tale life. And long story short, it wasn't that at all. It was very emotionally abusive, dealing with a lot of manipulation and things of that nature, all while I was trying to keep myself together for my family and especially my children. And as a result, I filed for divorce, which of course we'll dig into later. But in order to vent my frustrations, I began writing and journaling about what I was feeling and what I had gone through. And one day, God just lit up this light bulb in my head and told me, Cherise, you're not alone in this. And shortly after that, my blog, CheriseLaron.com, was born. And ever since then, it's been such an empowering experience to meet with so many different women and women like yourself, and then women who are going through what I have been through, and I'm able to help them and empower them by sharing my story. And it's just been such an enlightening and wonderful experience. So yeah, so that's what I go around doing, sharing my story, and of course being a real estate agent and running around sharing houses like a mad woman. So so yeah, so really, it's quite a journey, but it's a fun one. So yeah, that's the gist of me right now. I'm a mom and a blogger and a realtor, and I'm a happy one.
That's great that you've shared that, that you've gone around sharing your story to other women, empowering them. Because I think as much as there are so many women like us who are brave enough to come
Right.
out of this and move on with our lives, there are still many women out there who are just stuck in that kind of
Yeah.
relationship with letting fear hold them back and not being able to um, find a way out. And I think partly
Right.
because, right, they don't really know what to do and they don't feel comfortable being able to share. For yourself, right,
Yeah.
Cherise?
Yeah.
When you wanted, what was your wake up call? I mean, what made you decide that you need to like kind of put an end to this?
Ooh, the wake up call came maybe less than a year before the marriage actually ended. Um, I mean, really, I can write a book alone on the list of wake up calls that I've actually had where I was realizing that this wasn't for me. But the biggest wake up call actually happened in the simplest way. To reel back into the marriage a little bit, no matter what I did, I was blamed for any and everything. Nothing was good enough. If something bad happened, it was my fault, even though I had absolutely nothing to do with it. Things like that. And so the final straw to the end of the marriage was the fact that our lights got cut off. The bill had not been paid. Finances were always something that was an issue throughout the marriage. I dealt with a lot of financial abuse as well, where he was doing things behind my back, and the money just wasn't taking care of the family and the household. So one day I came home with the children. It's in New Orleans, it gets super super hot in the height of the summer, like July, around that time frame. So if your air conditioner is going out, your house is going to turn into a sauna. It's miserable. And so I walked in home one day with the children. My baby was only 1 at the time, and my little one was 4. And yeah, the house was extremely hot. And so I called the electric company, and they were like, "Yeah, we cut your lights off because the bill hadn't been paid in months." And I'm like, "What?" So I wound up packing up, the kids, myself, my 2 dogs, and the cat, and wound up having to go to my parents' house, and I didn't say a thing. Fast forward, it took about 3 days for the lights to get turned on, and I was still upset. I was like, I didn't want to come home right now, But as a result of that, he yelled at me and said that he was going to leave the marriage, and then that was it, because I didn't want to come home because he didn't fulfill his responsibility, because I was genuinely upset. And that was the straw that broke the camel's back. Finally, I worked up a nerve and said, okay, okay. Of course, it wasn't an easy okay to say, needless, because there were plenty of times where we tried to reconcile at that point. But that was the last time he was essentially in the house for the most part, aside from seeing the kids or whatever. And after that, it was a roller coaster ride. I finally filed for divorce, which was really a very surreal experience for me because I was still caught in this cycle of abuse. So even in filing for divorce, I was afraid of what he was going to do. And, but that was the hardest thing I've ever had to do, was sign that paper. But yeah, but that was essentially the end of it. It was just a constant cycle of, I'm mad at you, I'm leaving, or this is your fault, or I wouldn't have done this if it wasn't for you doing this, or whatever. There was never any accountability for anything that he did. And no matter how broken I've become, he did not care. And so yeah, that's the short version. That's the short version of how it ended. And at the end of the day, my inspiration for signing that paper was my children, because I realized my kids are going to one day grow up to be, because I have 2 boys. So they're going to see their father's behavior and think that's okay, and it's not. And one day they're going to be husbands and fathers, and I don't want them to follow that same pattern that their father, you know, put on us. And I just didn't want to see other people suffer, and I didn't want them to suffer, definitely. So I did it more for my boys than I did for me.
And I hear that whatever that you are saying, right, in terms of the accusations that's been thrown at you is very, very common in emotional abuse, abusive relationship, in gaslighting as well, where,
Always.
yeah, where, all this is so common to be, to be constantly having this put downs, constantly telling that, it's always your fault if something goes wrong. Yeah, it's because you were not there. And a lot of
Right.
times, women tend to take it like, yeah, maybe I have done something wrong. Maybe I've done something to cause um, the marriage to break down and all that. But I think when if women watching this, right, it's really clear that a lot of times, right, we take the blame for something that we've never really done. And like
Right.
yourself, Cherise, during the marriage, were you also a working woman? Do you have a career at the same time, or were you actually a stay-at-home mom?
Um, I was trying to have a career. I'll put it that way. When I graduated college, I went off and got my master's degree, and shortly after that, I got married. And the moment I got, basically, let's say my oldest child was born 9 months after the wedding. I'll put it that way. So um, the plans that I have for myself, as far as establishing my career, it didn't go the way I expected it to go. So I was a mom. I become a stay-at-home mom in the very beginning. However, a couple of years into the marriage, I got my real estate license and tried to get my career going. And of course, I was, doing other little jobs here and there and things like that. But for the most part, I was a stay-at-home mom. But I really wanted to get my career going. I didn't work this hard through all these years of school to just do nothing. So when I got my real estate license, it was like, okay, I'm gonna get the ball rolling. I'm gonna get the ball rolling. And naturally, I get pregnant the second time right after I get my license. But so in that process, though, there was never any motivation for me to do it, because I was constantly still hearing, you can't do it, you can't do it, you're not gonna be able to do it. Your mom over here, you can't handle being a mom to two kids and being able to handle a career and be a wife. You can't do it, you can't do it, you can't do it. So even though I had my real estate license and I was trying to get it started, I didn't have the mindset to really go like I wanted to, because I was constantly being, you know, mentally beaten down. And so my career didn't flourish until after my divorce, surprisingly enough. And,
And I love that you're sharing this. I think a lot of times, right? I when I got out of it, I personally felt that a lot of times this happens in a relationship because sometimes the other party, I mean, they can actually see that there's something in us, or they see that they are threatened, and they feel very
mm-hmm,
insecure because of what you can achieve, because that there's definitely something in you that in terms of like how you've excelled, and if given the option, I would have assumed that you would have done pretty well in your career even before, if you had started it much earlier, like during the marriage, before, after you got married, when it's just that all this constant put downs kind of really crushed you sometimes, and makes you feel
it
like
did.
I don't even want to try, because what's the point of trying? And sometimes when you have that kind
Right.
of lies spoken over your life for so long, and all these labels are just stuck on you, that you're never good enough, that you'll never be able to try or achieve a lot, it's sometimes
Mm-hmm.
subconsciously, whatever you do, it just doesn't turn out right.
It is very subconscious, because actually in the very beginning, when I was hearing those put downs, it was like, those are just words. I'm not going to listen to anything you're saying, and I'm going to do whatever I want to do anyway. That was always my mindset. But, I realized that this wall that I put up and called myself blocking, it really was slowly but surely penetrating this slow leak. And what was happening was it was just, those words were just slowly making its way in. And if you ignore that, it turns into a flood. It turns into a disaster. The pipe bursts and it's out of control at this point. And that's essentially what had happened. It just slowly wiggled its way in. And there's nothing that I can do about it at that point. At least that's what I was thinking at this point. It was like, oh, okay, maybe he's right, or maybe it's this, or maybe it's that. And, I get those flashbacks of when I was in college and how much I had excelled and how bright my future, at least I thought my future was going to be at that point, thinking, okay, everything was going to be perfect. But when, over time, I was a shell of my former self, basically. I was, my inner essence, the essence of who I was completely gone, completely gone. And I mean, well, let me scratch that. Maybe it wasn't completely gone, because had it been completely gone, I would have been able to sign that divorce paper. I'll say that. But so I'll say it was maybe more like a little flicker, a little flickering light on the candle, barely hanging on. And so, yeah, he ripped it out of me pretty good. He ripped it out of me pretty good. And I didn't even realize it until I was crawling, basically, barely able to stand, barely able to function. I was empty. I was pretty empty. So yeah, it gets to you. It gets to you. So those who are in that situation, you may think it's not bothering you now, but eventually, the more you hear it, the more you're probably going to start to believe it.
Yeah,
And
and
it
that's
sucks.
really very true. And yeah, it's really very true. And like what you said, I totally agree with you, because sometimes after that, after a long time, right, you find that you've kind of really lost a sense of who you are, who
You
and,
do.
and and the person you were before, the person who you became later on during that point of after all that abuse, right? It's totally very different. Um, and
Oh
during
yeah.
this time, right, Cherise, like I mean, did you actually even speak to it about your friends or to any one of your family members?
Um, I'll say this. As far as my family is concerned, they saw the red flags long before I did. Um, and my mother always said growing up, I don't choose who you're going to marry. She always did say that. But as a mother, she was definitely very concerned for my future and the person that I had chosen. Um, and so they saw it pretty early on, way early on, and they tried to give me those subtle hints like, "Hey, this isn't quite right," or "This isn't quite normal." And of course, I was young, only 23 years old, fresh out of college, and so it was like, "Nah, we'll make it work." I was in this fantasy world, so my family definitely always did let me know very early on that they would be there for me for anything, and they were essentially saying when this goes down, when it really gets bad, we'll be here. So they were always there, and my mother was always there to talk to. But and then another dear friend of mine, Ashley, we went to college together. And let me add about my family real quick. As much as I love my family, and as much of a great support system that they were, the issue that I had was you can scream all you want, that this isn't good for you, but it was like I have to figure it out for myself, and that's one thing. You have to find it within yourself to get out. No matter how much people yell and scream, you have to find the power within you. And I didn't have it. I didn't have it at that point. And so as far as friends though, I have one dear friend of mine. She lives in Atlanta, Georgia now, but we went to college together from freshman year, like the very first line we got into, all the way up until now. And after I got married and she had gotten married, because we used to talk on the phone almost every other day, and we lost touch with each other after we got married. She got married a year after I did. And it was no ill will. It was just like, okay, one's busy. All right, the other one's busy. All right, what's going on? Maybe we just went two different paths or whatever. And shortly after I had my second son, we began to slowly get back in touch with each other. And then we slowly began to reveal that both of our marriages were equally toxic. And so, because we had known each other so long before we had met our spouses, we knew what the other one was capable of. So, a great turning point for both of us in our marriages were that we were able to remind each other that these situations that we're in is really not showing any support as to who we were before. So in that essence, that was a big turning point for both of us. She wound up divorcing the year before I did. So it was like, yeah. So we went to college together, we graduated together, we got married around the same time, and now we're divorced around the same time. How crazy is that? But that was very empowering, and that goes into a testament of me telling people it's okay to talk. It's because you never know what the other person's going through. Growing up, it was like what goes on in this house stays in this house. Don't talk bad about your husband to other people. You keep it to yourself, all that kind of stuff. That was the kind of things that we were taught. And, and what I had experienced and what she had experienced, and then talking to family members, I realized it is okay to talk because it opens the door for those who love you and knew you before to be able to remind you of that and give you that power to be able to see. Because it wasn't just that friend in Atlanta. As I was reminded from her, my family started coming in more and saying, hey, Cherise, this was you before. This isn't you now. And yeah, big old wake up call, huge wake up call. And so it's okay to talk. It's hard to do it. And it may feel embarrassing, but it is okay to talk. It's nothing to be embarrassed about at all.
And it's great
At
because
all.
I mean, like for you, you had a friend, like who you could relate to, and it was a reminder of like who you were growing up in school, and
Mm-hmm.
you could actually both of you can actually walk through that journey together. And I think sometimes you're
Mm-hmm.
so right, right? A lot of times we are brought up with values like you don't talk about what's happening at home. And some women,
Nope.
like especially in like very conservative or cultures or even like Asian cultures and all that, they find that it's really embarrassing to talk about it, like so they can kind of keep it to themselves, so people don't really know what's happening. They seem to have like a perfect wedding, perfect marriage on the um on the surface. It's like a facade, right?
Mm-hmm.
But you don't really
Social
see the
media, all
cracks.
that.
Yeah, you don't see
Like,
the cracks until, like, you really start talking and you find out a little bit more. And there's also, I noticed it when I used to do that sometimes, like some women would cover up the mistakes, like, if and it's really funny how this other parties, right, when throughout their
mhm.
throughout the relationship, when they're out, they portray themselves as the perfect
Yep.
spouse, and they are very supportive, so people tend to see only what they portray. It's like very different, like behind the doors at home, like what you're going through and all that. You will never know what's happening unless someone actually starts to speak. Like for
Mhm.
my case, when I finally decided to like throw in the towel, right? And people did ask me the same question, but I thought he was such a nice person. I mean, he was so loving, he was so good, but no one really knew what happened, like behind the
Right.
doors. And also, right, I was so I did get pretty upset or annoyed because although my parents were very supportive of the idea, but I still had some external family members. You do have all these external family members who will come in and, like, try to put in their 2 cents of worth and say, you know what, you should just go back to being with this person. Like, sometimes, if, like, for yourself, you might have kids, they might say, just for the
Yep.
sake of the kids, or you've been married for so long. And a lot of women don't get that strength and courage to go forth, to come out of that relationship, because they hear all this thing and they feel, yeah, I might as well stay stuck in it. And can you imagine,
Right.
like, what would have happened? Like, the person eventually just becomes a shell of who they are.
Oh God. I don't want to imagine that. I
Yeah,
don't. It's miserable.
it's
I
miserable. Yes.
remember moments where I've essentially been mute in the past. Like he would do something horrible or say something horrible, and then I'm just quiet, and I'm just sitting there, and it's like, Cherise, what's wrong with you? Nothing, and it was just like, wow. And actually, there was a situation like that that really showed how much power he had over me, where I'd taken a trip with him to visit some family out of town. And long story short, my oldest son got injured under my watch. He had a little incident. And as a result of that incident, he was fine. He cried a little bit and then went about his merry way. But as a result of that, he yelled at me in front of his family members. And and I'd just given birth to our second child. So I was just like, why are you yelling at me? And long story short, he pulls me to the side and was like, oh my God, what happened? And I kind of told him what happened, but then I also explained to him, if you were upset with me, could we have talked about that away from the family? And he yelled at me and was like, he called me selfish and I'm a horrible mother and all these kinds of things, and stormed off and left me by myself. And it was at that moment, thinking back on it, that's when I completely broke, completely had gone numb to everything at that point, from that point on. Well, when we were on our way back on the road, I was completely mute on the way. I just took care of the kids in the back seat and just went back to leaning on the chair and just being broken. And I remember we made a pit stop to get something to eat and all that kind of stuff. And I was sitting there and he came by me and he was like, wipe that look off your face. And as if it was a light switch, it was like, okay, I'm up now. I'm okay. I'm good. And I had to put the mask back on and try to pretend I'm as close to who I once was as I could be, even though it was nowhere near it. But at least at that point, I was able to hold something of a conversation. But thinking back on it, that was when I realized how much control he had up here over me, and after that, yeah, numb. Everything that he did was normal. Everything that he did was like, yeah, he stayed out all night again. They're like, aren't you upset? It is what it is. okay, and so yeah, it was in that moment. And my youngest son was only 3 weeks old, so I was fresh out the hospital having this baby, and I broke. I broke. So that rock bottom feeling, that walking around like a shell, that's been me. That has been me, and I don't wish that on anyone at all. That is hell. That is straight hell. And my home became a prison. It was like coming home was like walking into this storm or this battle that I had to make sure that I was ready for. And I don't wish that on anyone. Like, to expect to come home and there's going to be something waiting for you, something bad waiting for you, some form of negativity. No, no, you don't want that for your future. That's not love. That's not a marriage that you want. It's not a relationship that you want. Even if you're not married, if it's a boyfriend or even a coworker or a family member, you don't want that. You don't. It's a nightmare.
For any relationship, we are not even talking about just marriage, but for any relationship, I think no one should
Right.
be able to accept that, or we have to actually like kind of speak up for ourselves and say like, no, this is not what I'm going to tolerate. Because I agree, I totally agree with you, because it's really like living hell. Like, when you come in, you don't know what to expect. Sometimes,
Right.
you might be, and everything might seem okay. Like sometimes when you come back home, the mood could have changed. Everybody, person could
Yeah.
be laughing and everything could go well. And then at a flick of a switch, right? Suddenly, the
Hmm.
mood can change as well. And then you find, and you're always walking around like in eggshells, like, because you don't know,
Always.
you don't want to like mess it up. You don't want to like, get into
Right.
the wrong side of this person, and don't want anything to happen. So it's really like living in a nightmare, like like
It really is.
you are stuck in a nightmare that you cannot wake up from. I think that was how I felt.
Right. Right. And
Yeah.
then there's always that hope that, and you hold on to that person that you first met, at least the person that you thought you first met. You hold on to those memories and hope that that person's going to come back. And then, it was a matter of trying to figure out and understand for myself that that person that I've fallen in love with never existed to begin with. And that's what women and men, anybody in that situation has to realize. That person that you thought they never existed. And if you hang on to that, you're just hanging on to a fantasy sometimes. Maybe some people are
I'm
willing to
glad.
change.
Yeah, but I'm really glad that you shared that. It's so true, because I think a lot of times what happens is people stay on that relationship thinking that, but I had very good memories. I had fond memories, and the relationship started off very well. This was not the person that I got married to, or this was not the person that I used to be with. But it's just that maybe circumstances could have changed, or maybe things could have gone wrong. But it's really true, like Cherise, that what you've pointed out, that that person didn't exist from the start. It's always
No.
been like I would say like an illusion. It was like a facade that was created,
Hmm.
and I feel like it was something that was used to trap this person, whoever that was, into that relationship.
That's exactly what it was, especially when you're dealing with narcissists. They have a goal in mind, they're filling you out, and they're gonna figure out what it takes to reel you in. And yeah, after that, it's on. It's game on from there. And they really they target that. They target the empaths, the people who care and really have a genuine desire to please you and make sure that the people that they love are happy. They target that. So it's very easy to get caught up in that cycle. Very easy.
Um, no, I felt like one of the things, right, that happens during this time is, did you feel like cut off from the people that were close to you? Because like sometimes I
Uh,
think it's easier to get trapped, because suddenly you find that yourself spending only a lot of time with this person, but then like your
mhm.
family, your friends, you don't really get to see much of them. The only friends or family that you see is the other parties. Was that the same
Right.
for you?
No, actually, it was a blessing that this happened this way. But my parents live a couple doors down from me, so it was a little hard for him to try to break that bond. Now, not to say that he didn't try to break that bond. He definitely did. He would just try to create this wedge between us. And there were times where my family and I argued to the point where we didn't talk for a while. There were points where, there was this thing that was stirred up, and, he thrived on that. He thrived when there was conflict between my parents and I in particular. And yeah, so I will say he definitely tried. He definitely tried. But, we were literally down the street from each other. It wasn't intentional, it just worked out that way. But yeah, but he definitely tried. And as far as my friends were concerned, I was definitely isolated from my closest and dearest friends that I've had since high school. I christened, like a couple of my friends' children. I missed out on years of their lives because of my marriage, for sure. And so, yeah, he was definitely working to get me isolated from them. He just had a hard time doing it because they were down the street. So the next best thing for him was to stir up that conflict and try to create this animosity between us. But my parents and I always did find our way, back to each other in some way, shape, or form. And plus my parents actually had to help us a lot financially as well. So he couldn't pull us too far apart because they couldn't help because he was taking, like I said, he was taking money out of our household. So it got to a point where my parents were helping me with the groceries and the bills and all that kind of stuff because he wasn't doing what he was supposed to do. So, he couldn't pull us too far apart, but he did do enough to drive a wedge between us for a while. And that wasn't fun.
And then what was your emotional state like once you have like when you finally did like take a make a decision and sign the papers? I mean, what was it like, coming out of this whole thing?
How do I word it? I'll put it this way. Basically, at the time that I signed the divorce papers, I felt like there was just piles and piles and piles of rubble on top of me in the bottom of this hole. So that's how I felt when I signed those divorce papers. It felt like there was this weight. Even when I signed the divorce papers, that weight did not get lifted. And so, how I felt at that point, again, I was completely, completely broken. I didn't, like I said, I did it more for my children than I did for myself. So yeah, it was a huge weight that was on me. And so as time slowly progressed, I was slowly trying, well, I give God all the credit for it. God was slowly digging me out. I'll put it that way. And I often compare myself to a phoenix, which is, I'm sure you've seen on the site, the logo is, it's a phoenix. And I genuinely believe that I was that burnt out old phoenix that had died and got buried under the ashes. That's what I was at that point. And it took a year or two to get to the level of feeling like I could fly again. It took a long time for me to at least get back to some version of who I once was before I got married. And now up until today here in 2021, I'm better. I'm a better version of myself than I was before I got married. So, but at that time of filling out the papers, there was this huge weight on me, a huge, huge weight. And I did not know how I was going to get out of there at that point. I really didn't know what the future was looking like. It was so unknown because for me, he was my future. So, what is it going to look like on the other side of this? So it was pretty hard. It was pretty heavy, very heavy.
I just wanted to ask you, right, like how much of faith, right, like faith in God, and how helpful was that during your journey of like coming back to your original self? Like, what did you do something different?
My faith actually was very strong even throughout the marriage, to believe it or not. But the type of things that I was asking God for slowly changed. So I always say that God was always there. I was just asking for the wrong thing. Like during the marriage, it was, all right, God, change me so I can make the marriage better. What can I do to make the marriage better? Or I'm the problem, Lord, so fix me. So that's what I thought I was doing. I thought I was doing that the right way. But even though God was like, no, that's not what I'm trying to tell you. Like, okay. So over time, after the divorce, I, instead of just praying, like, God help me, fix me, I turned to journaling. And once upon a time, it was, like the journal would be like, whatever date, here's what's going on. But my journal evolved to Dear Gracious and Heavenly Father. And it turned into letters to him, asking for guidance in the situation, as opposed to Lord, fix me and make me better. It turns into Lord, guide me, take over me, tell me where you want me to go, and I will go. And so that's how it evolved at that point. And that's when I slowly began to make my way out of that rubble, and God started pulling me out. Like, this is what I wanted you to do the whole time. You were on the right track, is what I think God was hinting at me. Like, you were on the right track, you were hanging on to me, but you're not asking for what I need you to ask me for to help you to grow. So when I finally realized I don't need to be asking him how to make me better so this can be fixed, it was, you're taking over. You lead the way. I'm letting go. I'm not trying to fix it. I'm not going to be the one to fix anything. I'm just going to go the direction that you tell me to go, and I'll do it. And I'm going to put all my faith in you. Like I think we were talking about earlier, like a crazy roller coaster ride. Like, all right, we're going up this roller coaster, and I don't know what's going to happen when we go get down that slope. But and I'm freaking out. But at the end of the day, it's going to be this crazy, awesome, wild ride that you will never ever forget. And that's how my faith evolved at that point. The faith was there; it was just a different kind of faith. But it evolved into, Lord, you're running this. Tell me what to do. You lead the way. I'm giving you lead me, and I'll follow. And everything changed from there. Everything. And here I am. So yeah. It's all in how you pray. It's one thing to pray for $1 million. That might be nice though. It'd be nice to have $1 million. But but it's another thing to ask him to guide you, and you're gonna see something beyond your wildest dreams.
And what are you up to these days, Cherise? Do you want to share a little bit? Because I know that you have been like ever since you've put all those things behind you. It's never stopped you from moving forward, and you've been really doing some great and amazing things. And I just want to hear from you, like, what are some of the projects that you've embarked on ever since the divorce?
Oh Lord. Well, we'll start off with the blog. That was the first and biggest project that I began working on. My blog, CheriseLaron.com, actually became a whole healing tool in itself. So that thing is my baby right there. And I always use the theme, keep praying, keep pushing, because that's what my life essentially has been symbolizing. Like, just keep praying, keep going, let them guide you, and don't let anything stop you. And so my blog has always been my passion project. Of course, it launched 3 years ago. Well, 2 years ago. I started it 3 years ago, but it actually launched 2 years ago. So it's in the midst of being updated, and I'm moving some things around. And there's a store there now, but I'm updating that too. So I'm looking forward to seeing this baby grow into something even bigger than what she was before. The other projects I'm working on, I'm slowly, working on some other blog posts, maybe a book, as people have been bugging me about, but we'll see about that later on. And being a real estate agent and being a mom, the most important project right there is being a mom to my two boys and helping them to grow and helping them to see that even though mommy had hit rock bottom, I came out of it. So you guys can come out of it too in any situation that you're in. So those are my biggest projects. And of course, real estate here has been absolutely insane. Um, like competition after competition in the house buying process in terms of, getting clients under contract and things like that. So because of the pandemic, surprisingly, business has been booming in real estate. So I have been a busy working mom, and then I've been homeschooling my kids since the pandemic started too. So yeah, I'm a pretty busy woman, but I'm not complaining about it one bit.
That's good to know. That's good to know that how your life is coming back on track. And I do see that there's going to be so many things that's in store for you going forward. I mean, this sometimes I think the start is always like interesting. You start embarking on a few projects and then you're getting yourself out there. But I think there's always like a plan for you that God has. And he's just laying it out. And, as you begin to step and as you begin to move forward, you will
Mm-hmm.
see the things that he has called you to do, the purpose that he has for your life, that it will become very, very clear to you. And I'm really excited to see what else that he has in store for you as well.
I know. Thank you so much. Thank you so much. I'm really excited about the future. I often laugh at my mom now because I remember being a little girl coming up to her and I was like, "Mommy, God wants me to write something, but I don't know what it is." And she was just like, okay. And I always carried that with me throughout my entire life. It's like, what do you want me to write? Like, what is it? And he revealed that to me in this moment. So the blog itself is just a starting point, and it's just, again, it's a roller coaster ride. So it's about to be a pretty fun and wild ride for me. So I'm super excited about the future. God is good all the time.
Amen. And is there a favorite quote or a verse that you live by?
Galatians 6, chapter 6, verse 9. And it sounds crazy because people are like, reap what you sow. But basically, it says, let's not grow weary in doing good, for in due time, God will reap the benefits of what we harvest. And so it was just kind of like, reap what you sow. That's a little, but what it essentially means is be patient. Keep doing the right thing. Keep going down the path that God has in store for you. It may not look like nothing's happening now, but something bigger is definitely coming your way, and you are going to be blessed beyond belief. And I'm a living testament to that. So trust me, it's going to be worth it. We just have to be patient and keep going and keep holding his hand.
Yes. And I also believe that the restoration is always greater. Like, whatever that's been taken away, whatever that's been lost, when God restores, he always restores, like even better than what it was originally, I would say.
Right. Amen. We are all phoenixes rising from the ashes at the end of the day. But one day we're going to be that old phoenix and, carried in the ashes. But eventually we're going to be flying and soaring and breaking ceilings. And you just won't believe it. You just won't believe it.
Yeah. And I think that's living proof already because, before if people meet us and unless we start to share our story, that's when they see us as living testimonies of how good God is and how God can turn around all the negative situation and how God can really restore. And that's really living testimonies of of the grace of God in our lives.
Right. I think if we'd have met each other years ago, we would just be two just broken shells there, like, okay. You just wouldn't believe it. I look back I just think back on who I was years ago and I'm like, who is that? You just, the shock. But I'm happy to be who I am now. And you are an absolutely beautiful woman. And, I definitely see the power within you, even though we're, miles and miles away. I see the power within you. And, you have big things coming in your future. You really do. You are amazing because I read up on you and I'm like, wow. So you're awesome. Definitely awesome.
Thank you. And I think really, I mean, I'm really blessed, and I think this platform really enabled me to see so many wonderful women out there, hear their stories, and yeah, I think this is really the starting point. But we have to just trust God, and then as we just go about doing what He has called us to do, I think that's
Exactly.
yeah, it's
Exactly.
going to be so many things, and I think our stories would be like would also enable a lot of women to be set free, because some women are also with with that mindset that it doesn't happen to them, this will not happen to them, or and
Right.
sometimes I think all they need to know is like there's a wake up call. They just have to know that it's not the end of the road, like everything is not
Right.
over, but they can still,
Right.
whatever age they are at or whatever situation they are at, they can really come back a lot more stronger when they
They
let
do.
go of
They
whatever
do.
that dead weight that's holding them back down.
Right. Right. That weight will definitely, that dead weight is no joke. It really isn't. And it's hard for a lot of people to believe, but you don't know until you're on the other side of it. So it takes women like yourself and me as well to just be like, I promise you, it's not over after this. Because I've even had that moment. I'm sure you have too, where it's like, okay, it's over. It's over. This is it for me. But I'm telling you, God's got something big for all of his children, every last one of them. And you are not exempt from it. So yeah, go for it. Take that leap, because he's right there. He's gonna be right there to carry you through.
As we are coming to the end of the section, Cherise, do you have anything that you would like to share with the women out there?
Oh God, there's so many things that I would like to share, but the most important thing is keep praying and definitely keep pushing through. You know, I think I kind of summed it up, a few moments ago. Yeah, it may feel like it's over. It may feel like no one is there. It may feel like you're alone in the world, and that you can't get through this. But I promise you, if you just get to the other side of it, I promise you, you're going to be okay. It's about you finding that inner strength, because it's there. It's one thing to be a shell of your former self, but like I said earlier, you're not totally gone. There's a little barely lit candle fighting to survive in there. Take that take that spark and blow it back up, because you are going to be so amazing once you realize what there is on the other side. And God's got you. He's going to hold your hand. It's scary. Anything new is scary. When you're stuck in the cycle and you want to step outside of that, the unknown, I get it. You don't know what's going to happen once you stop that cycle. But I promise you, once you stop that cycle and jump off and let God carry you, you're going to be okay.
That's so good. Thanks so much for sharing, Cherise, and thanks so much for coming on this show and really sharing with us. So I mean, I think it takes a lot to come from that kind of vulnerable place and really share about like what really happened. And I mean, I do feel like there are times when I'm not sure, like for myself, when I started talking about it, it didn't I didn't feel any um I wasn't emotional about it. I didn't feel negative, or I didn't even feel like upset. I was actually very happy to talk about it, because I felt like
Me too.
that the weight has been gone, and it's been lifted off, and I feel like completely liberated.
Yeah, and the
To
same
be
goes for me.
honest.
The same goes for me. It's a crazy feeling, but when you do talk about it, it's also a reminder of how far you come, and look how powerful you are now. Not talking about it is what gives them the power. Talking about it gives you power.
I love it, and I think that's so true, because sometimes when we don't talk about it, and it just it. But when we start to talk about it, right, it's really a constant reminder to not only like how far you've come, but also for me, it's also a reminder of how God good is. And He
Yes,
can do
yes,
so many things in our lives. Like what else can He not do? So that is a constant reminder, and I always go back to this to really remember
hmm
like what He has done in my life. So yes, I do agree with you.
yeah, yeah. Thank you, and thank you so much for having me. This was really such a great talk, and it was such a powerful talk for sure. And I'm really honored that you allowed me to come on your platform and allowed me to share my story. So thank you.
I'm really glad to have met you and really have to, I can really identify with a lot of things that you've shared. And I'm so happy to see that you are in a very comfortable place right now. I can see that, that I can imagine the things that you've gone through and coming out of it and, living that life that God has called you to live, with the children and all that. I'm so happy for you. And I'm just excited about the book that's going to come out soon.
Thank you.
No
I don't know when
pressure.
it's coming, but it's coming. Yeah, it's in its baby stages now. So yeah, it might not be around for another year or two, but I definitely am making it a huge part of my passion project, just as the blog currently still is. So I'm super excited about the future for sure.
All right. Thanks so much for being on the show, Cherise. And do take care. And yeah, I just want to encourage the viewers out there who are watching. And if you feel like you have someone that you know who could be going through a similar situation, do encourage them to step out of it. Provide that support that they need. Sometimes I think what this women lack is just really a listening ear, a support to encourage them to say that, what, it's okay to step out. It's okay to come out of this. And that's all the encouragement that they need.
Yes, yes. Amen to that. Amen to that.
Thanks, Cherise. Take care. We'll see you soon.
Thank you.
Bye.
All righty. Thank you so much. Bye-bye.
Bye.